communication cycle that we as human beings have to stay connected, to be connected, and to share what we know, what we feel, and how we can educate people about something we're passionate about. So at Blog Paws, we have the conference to help each and every one of you learn how to take the efforts that you put into your work online and turn them into a business, monetize them, or make them whatever you want them to be. One of the ways we do that is by bringing fantastic keynote speakers. The keynote speaker we have today is a phenomenal business person. I've known Pamela Slim a long time, 10 years or more. She and I connected back in the early days of blogging during the real onset of turning blogging into a business, of looking at blogging as something that could actually not only become a business, but support businesses. And Pamela wrote a book called Escape from Cubicle Nation. Awesome book. Still an awesome book, even though it's a past publication. So that's how we got to know each other. I know I reviewed it on my original blog, Lipsticking, because it really helped people understand how to escape from Cubicle Nation. That's what it was about. She has gone on to become a powerhouse in the business world, in the online community, offline community, and I was so honored when she said yes, she would come and speak to my bloggers at Blog Paws. So please join me in welcoming Pamela Slim.
Thank you so much. Can I give you a quick hug? Thank you, my dear. All right. Well, I wanted to say welcome. I have spoken many, many places throughout the years, and I often like to bring my family, but this is the very first time I've been able to bring my complete family. So I wanted to say how wonderful it is to be here. In my husband's Navajo culture, we always greet the two-legged relatives, of which we are. We greet the four-legged relatives. So hello to our four-legged relatives that are here, our dogs, our cats, ferrets, anybody that I missed. To the Green Nation, in this Gila River reservation that we're here, this is very sacred land. Do you guys feel good here? This space, can't you just feel it? Feel that good energy here? My good friend Lynn, who runs the spa, is the cultural ambassador, and traditionally this land here for the Gila River people is a very sacred place, and it's a healing place. So I'm so glad that you chose it and wanted to welcome you to Arizona if you're coming from elsewhere, and also to Phoenix. So do you want to introduce our family? Oops. Okay, they'll turn it on for you. Okay, go ahead now, sweetie.
Hello. Hi, I'm Angela Rose Slim, and I'm 8 years old, and this is my brother Joshua Littletree Slim, and he's 11, and this is my dad Daryl Slim, and this is my dog DC, and this is Rocky, the one that I'm holding, and that's Lily. That means Little Billy Goat in Navajo.
So thank you. Thanks for letting me introduce my family. Thank you, family. Yeah. All right. So Angela and Joshua will be the microphone runners because I like to keep things moving and active and interactive. And so just raise your hand high when we have the participation sections, and they will find you and bring the microphone to you. All right. I also wanted to acknowledge, you know how things are serendipitous on Facebook today? Would you know that the timeline of 3 years ago, this photo came up, and this was our other dog, Shoki, who we adopted at 10 years old and cared for 3 years as a family. And this photo came up today, so I think Shoki wanted to also be acknowledged. So that's another member of our family that's gone on to the Rainbow Bridge. See, listen to that, right? They're talking to him. Dogs understand. Well, in my journey, as Yvonne was saying, I started my blog, Escape from Cubicle Nation, in 2005. So that was 11 years ago, which I think is 77 years in blog years, right? Isn't that kind of equivalent? And when I first started, I had been a consultant to the corporate world for a long time, and I had talked to many people in large corporations who wanted to quit their job and start a business. So I knew that there were many people who were there. But when I had the idea to help people leave their job to start a business, I really had no idea how ethically that I was going to do it, right? I couldn't go back to the people who had paid me handsomely in order to retain the employees there in order to help people escape. That didn't feel good with my ethics. And so I needed to find a way in which I could reach them. And I just remember that feeling. Some of you might feel it if you're a little bit earlier on in your journey, where like you know your people are there, right? You know that they're there, and you're staring at your computer screen, and you're just saying, you know, come on, Google, like give me these people. I can feel them, I know that they're there. And that's exactly where I was. I was completely unknown on the internet. I had a passion for my topic. I knew that people wanted to leave their job and start a business because I had talked to so many hundreds of them throughout the decade that I was consulting. But I didn't know how to find them. So thankfully, I met a woman named Suzanne Falter Barnes. And I think, Yvonne, that's how we first met. She had a class called Get Known Now. I don't know if anybody remembers back in those days. But my son Joshua was just 3 months old, and her whole philosophy was about creating a really strong brand name so that you could have something memorable, you know, that people would remember. And so it took me months and months and months and months of writing in my journal and doing exercises and visualizations and everything you can imagine to where I finally was actually walking Joshua on the island in my kitchen, and the whole thing came to me. Escape from Cubicle Nation, from corporate prisoner to thriving entrepreneur, like that whole name came. And it served me very well, right? Having some memorable way in which you can describe what you do in a way that people say, yes, you know, that's what I want to escape. And so Suzanne really was the person who taught me that foundation that got me started. And one of the assignments for the class was to start a blog. And I didn't even know what a blog was. I had never read one, I didn't know what they were. So I just began on my journey to start to go, you know, out and explore. And really what was amazing about it is I just found that there was this whole amazing ecosystem that was out there. And by ecosystem, I mean, it was like Narnia. Has anybody ever read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Where Lucy goes behind the wardrobe and all of a sudden she discovers this other world. That's what I felt like. Every day I would go and I would find one blog and it would lead to another and it would lead to another person. And it was like a totally wonderful discovery. And I began to see that there was this whole other world that I was unaware of when I was in my corporate life that was on the internet. And so I think a good way to describe it is with the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Is anybody familiar with that game? Okay. The theory says that every actor on earth is related by, you know, fewer than 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. So I'm actually 2 degrees removed. Does anybody know who's in this picture with Kevin Bacon? Me? No, it's not me, actually. Okay. Do you know what movie it's from? Tremors. Okay, it's from Tremors. Yeah, I remember that movie? Okay. It's actually my Aunt Char. Does she look familiar in this picture? Any Little House on the Prairie fans? My Aunt Char, claim to fame, was Miss Beadle from Little House on the Prairie. We have a fan back there. There's a Little House fan. And so she made Tremors with Kevin Bacon. And, you know, she's actually an amazing dog lover. She has been her whole life. So if you want her as a keynote speaker sometime, you know, maybe next year, I'll make sure to get her in here. She loves to speak, and she's an amazing woman. But, you know, I think that game that's really fun when you do diagrams and looking at how is one person related to another, and you start to see the connections, it really does open up this whole amazing world for you. And that's really what it is that I want to talk to you about today. You know, when thinking about all the ways in which I want to share what my journey has been, I mean, to me, it's nothing short of miraculous. It's like a magical mystery tour. If you've been doing it, Yvonne, you probably feel the same way. You know, if I had sat back when I was like a new mom sitting in Mesa, Arizona with like no name on the internet staring into my computer, and you would tell me that I was able to do all the things I've done in the last 11 years, I would never believe you, right? It's an amazing exploratory journey. And as bloggers, I think we're often excited by the tip, right? The trick, the 5 things you can do to get, you know, how to make your post go viral, and all these things we get excited about. Really, the perspective I want to share with you today are overarching philosophies in a way that you can start to think about your work, so that actually the virility of your blog, the connection you have with your readers, the way that your message gets out there is just the result of consistently doing the right things and being in the right places. So to start, I really want to be framing this idea of natural ecosystems. And ecosystems, the reason I choose it as kind of this natural metaphor is if we think about, I have ideal client because I'm a business coach, so I know a lot of you are interested in you know, monetizing your blogs and making money from what you do, but really you could put beloved reader in the center of this circle and it would really be the same, right? That in the middle of your ecosystem is that person who you most deeply want to serve. So the person who, maybe it's a publisher that you're really excited that will pick up your book, maybe it's the reader that you're really wanting to reach with your blog, but that person is in the center of this natural ecosystem, of this thriving network of people. And they tend to cluster in different areas. So you have service providers and influencers here. You know, I notice here there are some people who have, you know, famous pets and you're influencers in your space. And there are people who are, you know, coaches and consultants that really help in certain areas. And all those are people that that ideal client looks to. You have government and nonprofit associations. I find especially in our connection with animals, you know, we've always been a rescue family. You know, we adopt from shelters, and there are a lot of great nonprofits, right, who are doing that work, also within governmental sectors. There are faith and religious communities for some people where there's connections that your ideal readers are connected into these other parts of the ecosystem. Family and friends, right, associations. Tech apps and companies. I was having so much fun walking through the exhibitor hall, right, because it's just a classic example of companies that are delighted to be in a room with all of you, right? You are just absolutely their ideal customer. And so when they're here showcasing their products and services, it's not like they're trying to fight, right, for space in a store where there aren't people who already love animals. You've kind of self-selected who is here. Then you have events and conferences, blog Paws, right, as an example. And then social media, watering holes and publications. So probably some of your blogs are watering holes, are great places of respite for your beloved readers, right? They're so excited to read your stories. They're so excited that you can solve their problems. Do you know, it's kind of embarrassing, but I will tell you the truth. I was kind of more nervous about bringing my dogs here than I was about my children. You know, you kind of worry sometimes, like, are my kids going to act up? You know, I feel pretty good. My kids are pretty awesome, I have to say. They're very well behaved. But, you know, I was more worried about our dogs. I was like, oh no, I have all these like professional dog trainers and people, are they going to judge us? You know, like, you really get to know somebody by, you know, their dog. And so I just had a little bit of anxiety. And I thought, you know what, we're family here, right? So if our dogs happen to misbehave, then, you know, apologies. But it's really a neat example of how when you can be in a place with your people, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief. It's like you're able to bring your whole self to an experience. And that's really what it is that I'm feeling today, being able to bring my extended family. So for each of you, as you're thinking about your beloved readers or your beloved customers, really the perspective that you want to take is, what is that natural ecosystem of all of these people and conferences and gatherings and authors and influencers who surround these people? In my experience over the last 11 years, if you can really understand that deeply, and then you can make sure that you show up in those places, then that is where your work is going to start to get some traction. So there's some very specific ways that you can start to think about it. You know, in my perspective, my last book was called Body of Work, and my perspective about all of this in the big picture is that each of us here on Earth, during our time here on Earth, is here to create a body of work that we're proud of, right? Our body of work is everything we create, we contribute, we affect, and we impact throughout the course of our lives. So it is what we write, it is how we treat each other, it's how we treat our animals, it's how we treat the earth, it's how we walk through a room. Have you ever noticed somebody can walk through a room and you kind of feel really good, and then somebody else can walk through a room and you're kind of like, ooh, right? We leave emotional wakes by what it is that we do. So when you're thinking about this work that you're doing, we're talking about being bloggers. That's a means through which we express our work, right? That's a means through which we express what we're doing. But really, the body of work that we're creating is related to the impact that we want to have about the specific problems that we want to solve in the world, right? So it's about taking care of our animals. It's about celebrating life. There's so much joy here. I notice so much the quality in different audiences and connections. And did you notice that, you know, when you walk through the hallways here at a conference, everybody is always greeting each other, right? Maybe they greet the pets first. And that's awesome. But it's like, to me, it says something about, really about the affect of people who are drawn to this kind of work, is that they care about each other. They care about animals. They have a connection with each other. So when you're thinking in this bigger context about what's the purpose of the words that you're sharing on the blog, I know for me, really an early motivation with Escape from Cubicle Nation, and now as I continue work as a small business advocate, it's about economic well-being for all, right? I want us all to feel safe. I want us to have a home. I want us to feel like we're not stressing about how you're going to pay the mortgage. And to me, the small business ecosystem is a place in which we have so much energy and passion and vibrancy and opportunity, right, as our overall economy changes. So thinking from that perspective, it can take us less from, oh my God, like that last blog post only got X number of views, I'm bummed out. Oh man, I only got like 15 likes on Facebook. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm serially checking posts, you know, after I write them. But then I need to step back and say, wait a minute. Maybe there was that one person who read that post to which they absolutely got the answer to the question that they had, and that ended up changing their life. And that's the body of work perspective that you always want to be thinking about when you're writing your blog and you're doing your writing. In my experience, when you think about it that way, then that's also the thing that ends up getting people excited about the work that you do. It's not just like, oh yeah, there's this great blog, but it's really the person and the author that's behind it. So a way that I want to walk through it for you to think about is first in really identifying what is that unique spirit that you have. I see we've had some wonderful breakout sessions talking about your personal brand, the brand of your blog, right? You know, kind of what is your thing? What do you care about? What's your passion? What makes you unique? Your people. Who are your people? What are the unique characteristics of the people who you want to serve through your blog and through your business? And in particular, what kind of problems do they have? And what aspirations do they have, right? What do they want? Do they want a happy, healthy pet? Do they want to have a no-stress kind of relationship, right, in their home? And then what is their ecosystem? Where do they hang out, in person and online, in order for you to figure out and plan where it is that you need to spend your time? And finally, what are your beacons? I like to think about it like a bat signal that you send out. Your blog is a beacon. Your blog sends a big signal out to your beloved reader saying, I'm here, I have some answers, I want to serve you, right? Come listen to what I'm going to say because I'm going to solve the problems that you have. So this is a model that I'm going to be walking through with us here today. So the first thing is really about your thing, and I wanted to have you think about it in terms of just for you uniquely, right? What are my unique skills? What's my unique passion? What's something that I can bring that's really a little bit different to this corner of the world? Because we can look at macro categories, right, in the room. We can have dog people, we can have cat people, right? Within that, I imagine there are a million subsets, right? And what makes a blog interesting is more the voice and the personality of the person who's writing it. In order to know what that is, that's where you really have to know who you are. So I used an example of somebody who's very dear to me who happens to be here in the room, Ruth Carter. And if anybody went to Ruth's session. Now, Ruth, by profession, is an attorney, and yet Ruth's personality, one might say, is not your typical attorney. As she participates in No Pants Day here in Phoenix, where everybody rides the light rail in their underwear, as kind of this mass, fun exercise, where you often see her presenting sitting on top of a table, where she takes a professional picture, in Converse as opposed to a button-down suit. And Ruth is an example of somebody to me who really brings her voice and her unique spirit and her energy to the work that she does. So when you have that kind of experience, when people know who you are and you let that show through, then I think that's the thing that tends to make something really memorable, right? So as a coach, that takes some reflection. And it's easy to get in that compare and despair mode. Does anybody ever do that? Like, oh my God, look at that blog. That person's only been blogging 2 months, and oh God, it's like they've got all this attention. I always say to myself when I have those feelings, and to clients that I work with, don't worry about that, right? People are gonna do what they're gonna do, and that's to be encouraged. But you wanna get more clear and strong about what is your thing, what is your voice, what's a unique kind of perspective that you can bring to the work that you do. Right? I'm just simply saying. Thank you, four-leggeds, right? They just make life so much better. All right, so for your people, this to me is the heartbeat of everything that we're talking about when it comes to getting known and getting connected. We often think that being known is where people, get excited about who we are as personalities and all of our great ideas. The heartbeat of any great blog or any great book or any great movement is because it speaks the language of the people it serves. My job as a coach is to build the leadership capacity of the community I serve. I really don't have any interest at all in being an empire and having people follow what I say. What I care about is in building that capacity of the people who are out there doing the work, right? That's where I know that I'm really making an impact. So in order to do that, you have to write content that connects with the problems and the questions and the aspirations of the people who you want to serve, right? So that is something that you really want to find out. You can find this out in an easy way on your blog by asking people, by noticing what kind of comments they leave, what kind of questions they have. I know for many years at Escape from Cubicle Nation, when people would join my mailing list, I had a tip that I learned from my friend Tina Forsyth, who said when somebody first signs up, the next day after they sign up, you can send an email that just says quick question, okay, for the subject line. And make sure you just ask one question. So my question that I always would ask people is, thanks so much for signing up for my newsletter list. What is the biggest question that you have about starting a business? So that was it, and so people would get that automatically the second day after signing up for my newsletter, and through the years, I gathered thousands of answers. And those answers I was able to categorize. I'm worried about health insurance. I can't tell my spouse I'm going to quit my good job because they might kill me. I don't know what business to start. All these kinds of questions. And so I had this endless fodder for how it is that I was thinking about the kind of subjects to write about. So feel free to liberate that idea, right? Use it. It's very, very effective, and I used it for many years. After a while, the more that you connect with your audience, the more you're going to understand those natural questions. When you're speaking to them in their own language, that's when you start to get this very resonant voice in what you're doing. A good friend of mine, Susan Beyer, who is here locally in Phoenix, she is an audience segmentation researcher, and she really focuses on understanding your audience, not by demographics, but rather by problem. So what she often says is, don't define your audience by their demographics, define them by their problems. So we think, I want to serve women between the age of 35 and 55. I don't know, last time I checked, us women between the age of 35 and 55, we're slightly different, right? We have different needs, wants, aspirations, backgrounds. I mean, demographics does not tell you a lot. When we start to segment by what are our aspirations, I want to start a business, I want to start a blog, I want to, rescue animals, then you can begin to really develop some great content around that. All right, this is a little quiz for you, and I can have my kids running microphones for a second if we want to, or else you can say it out really loud. Please keep this slide here for a second so we can look at this. What audience problems do you think How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie solves? What was it over here? How to win friends, okay? So that's one. So one problem people might have is they have no friends, for sure. What's that? And how to influence people, right? So that's what the title says, yes, in the middle. How to generate a following, okay? So when he wrote the book, he probably didn't know exactly what that meant in modern social media days, right? But that's exactly right. So somebody could have the problem of, I need to get more followers, therefore what do I do?
He also teaches how to listen to people so that you understand their needs and are able to better meet them.
Okay, so he also teaches how to listen to people and how to better meet their needs so that you can help them. Okay? So the problem from the audience's perspective would be, God, every time I go into a sales call or I'm in a networking event, I end up spending 25 minutes just blawing about myself, and I realize that I don't learn anything about anybody else, right? So that's a very specific problem that this book could solve. So those are great for that first one. And kiddos, feel free to look really closely and send the microphones around. How about Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert? What problems might that book solve for its readers? Yes?
Be true to yourself.
Okay, be true to yourself. So the problem would be?
We lose ourselves and we're not sure what our direction. And when we find our direction and true to ourselves, then we can better serve others.
Exactly. And Angie, just go for it and bring the microphone right to the person when they're talking. So the problem can be, I feel lost. I'm disconnected from myself, right? I don't really know where I'm going. And I think that's one of the reasons that book spoke to so many people. One more audience problem for that particular book.
I'd say self-knowledge.
Self.
Yeah.
So I don't know myself, right? The problem could be I don't really know who I am. I don't know what's important to me. And that book was really written as an answer to that. Great example. How about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? All right, we have hands over here. Come on, kids. Josh, you play soccer. Run, sprint.
I would say this book really solves the problem of successfully getting lost.
Ooh, that's so cool. So is the problem that I don't know how to get lost? Or?
I would say the problem is more lies in staying to the routine of and also letting go. So you're fearful of the unknown.
Yes, totally. So it's I'm stuck in a rut, right? It was World War II, the kids were in this old house, they missed their parents. And all of a sudden, what happened when they went into the wardrobe is they discovered this whole other world that was there, right? Yeah, I'm stuck, I'm scared, I'm afraid of venturing out. Beautiful answer. Somebody else?
I was just going to say it's about how to escape your horrible reality.
Yes. Yeah, how to escape your horrible reality, right? Kind of being in a scary situation. Wonderful. How about Getting Things Done by David Allen? This is not a trick question, yes?
The whole time management, I don't have enough time to get done what I need doing, let
Yes.
alone the stuff I want to do.
Exactly. So I can't get stuff done, I don't have enough time, right? I'm stuck right up here.
Take a good look at yourself and identify what you can do better.
Exactly. Take a good look at yourself and find out what you can do better. Wonderful. So I like to do this exercise. Have any of you pitched books to publishers? Any book writers in the house? I see some hands going up here. Okay. right? So publishers think in terms of problem solved, right? That's always what it is. Like, what problem is this book solving? For whom? What's the ecosystem in which they live? And so when you start to look at this, it's kind of a fun exercise as you go into a library or bookstore to start to kind of back this out. So this is, thinking this way is something that's going to be helpful for you as you think about writing your particular content. All right, now when we start to get into the ecosystem and really understanding, based on what problems that people have, where are these natural places in which they're hanging out? All right? Now this is actually a watering hole, right? Blog Paws is an amazing watering hole. Isn't that a cute picture? Oh my gosh. That was just like, so cute. Samson, I don't know if Samson's in the room. Is Samson here? Okay, right over there. Yay, there's Samson. Oh, little sweetie pie. I know I was surfing, I was looking at the hashtag because I wanted to get a relevant photo, and that was just such a cute one that jumped out to me. But this concept of watering holes is so important because it's really hilarious. I talk to a lot of people who are like, God, I have no idea how I'm going to end up combining my interests in intellectual property law and my love of dogs, and then all of a sudden when you begin to look at ecosystems and watering holes, you're like, well, you could go to Blog Paws and you could be in a room filled only with people who write things on the internet, therefore need IP protection, and love animals by nature. So these watering holes are places, blogs can be also watering holes, right, in person and online, where you can find great numbers of people. I was at South by Southwest. Has anybody ever been to South by Southwest? Woohoo, right? Fun, huge party, about 23,000 to 30,000 people are there. So it's a lot for social media and tech and so forth. And I remember one day I was eating dinner with Guy Kawasaki, right, who is a blogger and a very well-known entrepreneurial person. And Zay Frank, who's like a big internet star that I was a total fangirl about, came up to the table. Ann Handley, if anybody knows Ann Handley from Marketing Prof, she wrote a great book called Everybody Writes. She has a mailing list of probably 500,000 people, and she walks up to the table. And then when I was leaving, I got up and I was just walking a couple feet down, and I looked down on the floor, and there was Tim Ferriss, right, of the 4-hour work week. So for me, in my ecosystem and my watering holes, I mean, how often could you be sitting with these people, huge influencers in my space, that were all gathered around this big watering hole of South by Southwest, of this conference, and we're also sitting all in this one main room. So my point that I say so often to my clients is think deliberately about where you're going to spend your time, right? Should you spend all of your money running around the country all year long, going to 50 different conferences, hoping that you can like throw a dart and get some clients? Or do you want to carefully think about where would be the richest, deepest watering hole that is filled with ideal clients? And that's both in person and that's also online. So that's really a key for you to figure out how to strategically spend your time with what you're doing. The other thing is, it can feel kind of yucky, right, to like network and go meet with influencers. Does anybody get a little bit of like yuck around that? I spent about 18 months working with Susan Cain. So if there are any introverts in the house, you can quietly and raise your hands in the air. But Susan Cain wrote the book Quiet about the power of introverts and started the Quiet Revolution, which was a project I was really proud to work on. And one of the things that for more my introverted brethren and sisterin, I'm kind of a raging extrovert, right? But for folks who are a little bit more introverted, by nature, where spending lots of time in a room filled with tons of people can be very unenergizing, right? The whole thought of going around and networking and connecting with people can be very overwhelming. And so sometimes reframing what you're doing can make a very big difference. When you have, again, your ideal beloved reader in the center of that ecosystem, and you're caring so much about solving the problems, right, that they bring, then it becomes this fun quest. Then it becomes a way that you can say, who is the smartest person ever that I can go reach in order to solve that problem, right? Who might have an answer to this? And I don't know about you, but to me it just makes the whole experience Like, it makes me relax. It makes me not freak out so much and kind of pass out when I'm around people that I really admire. I don't stutter so much because you have that connection around the problem that you want to solve together. And that's really, again, from the body of work perspective, where you begin to look for your advocates and your allies and your peers, all with that joint mission of solving the kinds of problems that your beloved readers want solved. So hopefully that can make this process be something that's not just like, oh man, now I have to go network and get to meet people, but think about it maybe in terms of coming into a space like this and going like, what would be something that would be really wonderful? What would delight my readers? Is there one person that I totally would love to go, get a picture with or do a quick interview? Or is there a pet that I know somebody would love? How can I do some photographs in order to delight them? And that, again, puts you a little bit more in the role of a journalist and can be a lot more exciting. All right, so finally you start to look at when you know where it is that people are, and you can identify the kinds of people and the influencers that you might want to reach, really where the heart of what you're doing comes into play is around the specific content that you're creating, is around events that you're creating. This is a beacon, right, Yvonne? I don't know, how long have you been doing this event at Blog Paws?
7 years, this is our 8th conference.
Okay, 7 years, this is the 8th conference. So this is this example of this bat signal, right? Animal, pet bloggers around the world, right? Here we are, come join us, so that it really is more a chance for you as a community to begin to connect together. That's where the power of community building comes, where you can find other peers who are solving the problems that you want to solve, right? But also, your content, that which you create, is a thing that becomes super powerful. Because from that perspective, if anything is going to bring readership to you, it's because you have a very unique perspective and you're sharing really relevant information, right? So decisions that you want to make about what you write about. Again, you have ideas now that you've built in talking to your beloved readers, figuring out the questions that they have, experimenting with things, noticing the kinds of things that people are interested in. And you want to start to experiment with what are the kinds of things that you can share that will really light people up. What's going to delight them in terms of your editorial calendar? Guy Kawasaki is, as I said, a venture capitalist and an author in Silicon Valley. To me, he was probably the first influencer that I found in 2006. So I had been writing Escape from Cubicle Nation for just a few months. I had my dad, my sister, and my best friend who were regular readers, and then maybe like a random person from Google who would stumble across it, right? And one day I was pushing my stroller around my neighborhood when Josh was a baby, Angela wasn't born yet, and I got this idea in my head that I was going to, I fantasized what I would say if I was doing a keynote speech to assembled top executives after being a consultant for 10 years. And I thought, what are the things that I would just say to them straight if I just had them all in a room and I could just tell them the unvarnished truth? So, when you get a blog post in your head, I was like pushing the stroller faster and faster. I think it had like a lot of coffee. I was starting to get really like pumping my fist in the air. And I came home and I sat at my keyboard and I wrote the post. It actually originally had 4 points to it. And then on a whim, I had seen Guy Kawasaki before. I was following his blog, and on a whim, I just sent him an email, and I said, hey, Guy, I follow your work. I think you're awesome. I thought you might like this post. So I sent it to him, and then 10 minutes later, I get an email back. So I screamed. I was like, oh, my God, Guy Kawasaki wrote me back. It's so exciting. And he said, can you make this a top 10 post? Because he loves things in top 10. I said, sure. So I wrote till about 2 in the morning. I sent it to him, and he published it on his blog the next day. And the result was nothing short of extraordinary. I went from 50 readers at the most to 20,000 readers a day. Now I call him my link sugar daddy because I was like, thank you. This is a perfect example of the right kind of content that spoke very directly to the heart of my beloved reader, who was that person who was stuck in a cubicle, who was dying to tell senior leadership, do not manage us this way. Not everybody wants to leave, but you need to start to do different things in the culture if you really want things to change. And so this became my most viral post of all time. It went, all around the world. It really was kind of a tipping point for me in terms of people being aware of my work. But the essence of it was because it was a little scary to write, because I thought, okay, some of my old clients might read this, and I love my old clients, and I really was proud of the work that I did, but it was taking a stand to really share something that was very honest about that, and it ended up, working really well. So it's why sometimes, I've actually had people ask before, like, so how do you write a viral blog post? Well, let's see, live about like 40 years with like lots of pain and suffering and write a bunch of stuff and then randomly send an email to somebody one day, and it happens. I mean, you just cannot know. But you start to see how these layers build on each other. When you know what your message is and you're clear in your identity and you speak with honesty and you reach out to connect with somebody who's sitting on this amazing ecosystem of people who would be your ideal readers. That's the experience that I had with Guy. So what he said is I was on a panel with him at South by Southwest, and it was about blog to book. I know one of my fellow speakers was talking about that, right? When my publisher, Penguin Portfolio, made an offer to me to do a book that was based on my blog. And he said, people think that, Guy Kawasaki said, people think that I have the Midas touch, right? That whatever I touch turns to gold. So in some ways he could say, because I actually pointed to that post, I made Pam's future, which, I always give him credit because it really was a big break for me. But what he says is, I only touch gold. And he was talking in the room about what do influencers want, what do people look for. It's not about just saying, oh, you're advantageous to me. You have a lot of, blog readers, like you can, benefit me. No, people who are influencers simply means they've been around the block for a while, they've spent time building their audience. And to me, if they're the kind of influencer I want to work with, they are passionate also about solving a problem for an audience. So when they find something that you wrote, whether you have 2 readers or whether you have 200,000 readers, that's something that they're going to connect with, and that's really a core, really a core strategy. So I wanted to give an example of, to me, which is just absolutely audience-centric content, and it's a little bit of a braggy auntie thing because it's my niece Jordan Dinwiddie, my best friend of 32 years, Desiree. This is her daughter, and she works at Wyden Kennedy, which is an advertising agency in Portland. And Jordan's the kind of kid, when she was still in college, like a semester before she was going to graduate, she was researching all these places where she wanted to work, and she would send me messages late at night, and she would say, all right, Auntie Pam, I need you to do your Auntie Pam thing. And I was like, what's that? And she's like, I need to be connected with this person. I need you to share this on Twitter. I need you to use your influence to get me to the next step. Because she's very proactive about her job search. And so she ended up being hired by Wyden Kennedy, which is one of the top advertising agencies in the US. And she was a first-year copywriter, at age 23. And she's working on the Nike account at Wyden Kennedy as a real junior copywriter. And so she said that there was a project that was coming up, and she decided, even though it was not in her job title whatsoever, that she would just come up with an idea and she would pitch it, because they allowed you to do it. So she pitched an idea, and the idea made it in the top 4, which was very exciting. And then Nike ended up choosing her idea. And let me show you what her idea was.
Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got. Because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor, because of this city, we owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They gonna support us, man, but we gotta give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is gonna come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go, bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Let's go. All work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. Yeah. All work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Go, man. All work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Go right here. Let's get it. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Even if you don't care about basketball at all, can you feel her feeling about the audience that she wanted to serve with this commercial? This is what I want for our country, right? Hard work together. I mean, just, and I told her, and after the commercial came out, I was literally stunned. I had no idea what it was going to be. I didn't know if it was, any little spot. And this was actually made last year. So they lost last year in the playoffs. They just won. Anybody from Cleveland here in the room? Any Ohio people? Yay, okay, congratulations. Was it 57 years or whatever you waited, right? I'm so proud of you. But, I told her, I said, Jordan, you know what I was doing at 23 years old in my first job out of college? I was making copies. I was stapling things, right? And what she said to me was so profound, and this is why I wanted to share this particular example with you, is she said, I wanted to show them what I was capable of doing. And I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to just pay my dues. I wanted to just throw in my idea, and it might have been rejected, and she was terrified out of her mind when she got it, and she had to put this whole commercial together. But that message is one, and the spirit of that message is one that I really want us all to consider as content creators. I find that to be so fearless. Now, I think she's a genius. I think she definitely has amazing talent, but when you feel You feel it. You feel the way in which she is thinking about the message that's going out to that audience that she wanted to reach. And yes, it was to the people of Cleveland. But when we start to think about ecosystems and other people that might relate to that, it's people who feel like they always lose. It's people who feel like they have been underrepresented, right? It's people who feel like no matter how hard they try, something always happens and they always get a hard break. And that is an example of great content. And that content comes from really getting in the head, mind, heart, and spirit of your beloved reader. So there's some other great examples of that. I'm a big Humans of New York fan. Do you guys like Humans of New York? Brandon Stanton? Oh my gosh, just such an amazing content creator. And his story was he was a bond trader, and he said for 2 years, every day of his life, he would wake up and worry that he was going to get fired. Like he just hated his job, he didn't know what he was doing, but he kept doing it until one day he did get fired, right? That which we imagine often ends up happening. But he wanted just to start a project where he was capturing just the spirit of the people in New York. And so he started taking photographs, and then he started accompanying the photographs with the summary of an interview that he did. So this is one of my favorite ones. And Opie, if you can keep that slide up on the screen for just 1 second, my friend's back there, so I can read it. So he said, in this picture, said, I actually went to the shelter to get another dog, but he'd already been adopted. So I decided to do a lap around the facility before I left, and I saw Engelbert. He had about 10 pages of physical problems. His back legs didn't work. His old owners kept him outside, so his ears were completely frostbitten. And he only had 3 teeth. So I thought, if I didn't get him, nobody else would. First of all, like, that is poetry in motion in terms of summarizing, like grabbing a quote that so perfectly matches a picture. Where I know for myself as a dog lover, and I know for all of you, like that just resonates so deeply in our core. And it's an example of great reader-focused content. Now Humans of New York has 15 million readers. You know, they have a huge Facebook page. He ended up getting a book deal for Humans of New York. And I love to look at these kinds of content creators to be thinking about not how do I make my post go viral, right? But how is this person deeply, deeply listening to the reader? How are they really capturing that story? How are they thinking about what they want to share? And I love the kind of work that he does. When I was at Escape from Cubicle Nation, I created series, because again, I was trying to think of what are ways in which I could be sharing, like, kind of user experience stories for my blog readers who were people in corporate jobs who wanted to leave and start a business. And one of the things that people fear in that case is that I'm going to live in a van down by the river, right? I'll be 35, divorced, live in a van down by the river. Remember that Chris Farley skit from Saturday Night Live? And many people do worry about that. And so I created a series, which I called Side Hustle and Flow, because I kind of like puns, right? For people who had done side hustles successfully until they were able to quit their job to start a business. So I profiled people like my good friend and client, Willie Jackson, who had been, worked for a large company as a consultant and worked on his side hustle until he was able to leave his job. So these are ways, again, really trying to get in the minds of your readers and thinking about what they want. It's one thing for me, who had been self-employed for a long time, to tell the story. It was another thing to create this whole series where people said, oh, okay, like, I'm like that person. Here's what they did. And it brings up what my friend Jonathan Fields calls a body of evidence, right? The body of evidence that this is not just a pipe dream. Please don't quit your job without no plan. Hating your job intensely is not a business plan. It is not at all. So I don't advocate that, right? Everybody profiled in this series carefully, diligently worked so that they could build up their side hustle. But again, when you're thinking about your reader and the content that you want to share, these are the kinds of things that really makes them feel connected and solves their problems. All right, so in terms of influencers, I think the only real advice that I've had through the years, starting as somebody who was just totally unknown, staring into my computer screen, hoping to find my clients, when you do identify people in the ecosystem that you want to serve, that you want to connect with, definitely take time to introduce yourself. Thank God, on a whim and a lot of coffee, that one evening I decided just to send an email to Guy Kawasaki, right? You never know. 50 times it may not work, but then there's that one time that it does work. So don't be shy. We are all equal. We are born that way, right? As human beings on the planet, none of us is higher and lower than another. Some people are just a little bit more experienced in the areas that you're interested in. So don't get trapped in that whole thought of like, oh, but I'm nothing and I really have a lot of readers. That's not true. You have a voice, you have a perspective, you're part of the ecosystem, you want to solve the same problem. So introduce yourself. Let people know who you are. Share your work. Show your work. Get it out there. Share your posts, share your videos, right? Speak. Do what you can to show your work. That was the lesson that I got from Jordan, right? Show people what you can do. Show your audience's work also, right? How can you be featuring your own readers as a way for them to see themselves? Now, if your audience are not pets themselves, right, but the owners of pets. And so, when people see themselves, they get really excited. And then one thing that's been really helpful for me is really supporting without expectation. That sometimes when people are in a more influential place where they have lots of money or opportunity or they have followers, is there many, many people every day who are pitching them, right? Would you post this for me? Would you do this for me? And one of the things that I have done that I've really taken to heart is for people that are very dear to me. I call them my High Council of Jedi Knights. I love Star Wars too. So I think about people, Dan Pink and Seth Godin and Guy Kawasaki and Nancy Duarte for me are really like my High Council of Jedi Knights. And early on, I always thought about, who are they as a person and how might I share a useful piece of information? If they have a book coming out, how can I make sure that I share that with my audience? And I'm so careful about when I might actually ask for a favor from somebody that tends to have a little bit more influence, right? Support first. It's just a good basic philosophy about life, not just about influencers, but anybody, right? Show up and be that kind of a person so that maybe when down the road you do have something to ask, it's very well thought out and you already have that kind of relationship with somebody. And then, tag them. Like, make sure that you're referencing people. As I said, you can help get the word out. People who are writers and authors often appreciate when you're sharing about them, and so those are ways in which you can really begin to get things going. So for each of you, what I hope that this talk helped to frame for you is, first of all, that if you're like me and you're the early stages and you feel like your readers are out there but you can't find them, what you want to start to do is to be curious and scientific and hit the Google and research, right? Associations related to whatever is your area of expertise, right? There's directories of conferences, search for influencers. Come up with your map and then begin to sort through, based on who you are and what's important to you, where are the places that are very best for you to focus your time and energy, right? Of all the conferences that you could speak at, what is the number one and the number two that would be the very best in terms of visibility, okay? Of all the places where you might want to guest post, where is a place that you might really take some time and cultivation in order to develop a relationship with the head of that blog in order to get featured, okay? Being more strategic about it, I think, is going to be really super effective for you. So what I would love to do, if we have another 6 minutes or so, is actually to take some questions. Can we raise the lights up a little bit? Is that possible for our live stream folks? I don't know if that's going to, maybe get a little warmer in the room. What kind of questions do you have about getting more readers to your blog, working with influencers, working with companies? Josh and Rosie, can you get up, see a raised hand?
Yes.
What kind of questions or concerns that you have as you're looking to grow your own blogs? All right, yay, we have a hand.
How do you talk to influencers or people that are at the level that you want to be without sounding pitchy, or there's the positive drive, but then the fact that you don't want to be like clinging on them and using them? You really want to get the information from them and be a part of a network instead of just using them.
Yeah, like kind of a fanboy or fangirl. I mean, to me, like the first time I met Dan Pink, I was like, oh my God, you're Dan Pink, oh my God, I love you. And then it was like, okay, that was out of the way. And then really the connection point, it comes back to that shared body of work, right? When you come in informed, when you know what it is that they're working on, when you know what it is that is important to them at any given time, right? Is there a project? Is there a book they're working on? What are they researching? Then that's where you can start to get common ground. And that's really where that element of being useful is, right? I mean, you have lots, again, they're a little bit more experienced and they have more influence, but you have an opinion and you can have something that can help contribute to that conversation. So I never go in first, like my first connection with somebody, ever asking for something. I usually ask them, what are you working on right now? And what are the kinds of things that you're looking for? The same thing is true for the press. I've gotten tons of mainstream press throughout the years. Crazy. New York Times, Wall Street Journal. You know why? For every time that I'm featured, I've helped with like 25 different stories. I reach out to the reporters. I say, what stories are you looking for? Do you need any people for it? And behind the scenes, I feed it to them. So it's, find out what they're looking for, stay in contact, and then when there is an ask, then don't be shy about asking for it. All right? Another question? Right over there.
I'm Josh from Hello Token. Quick question. When do you know, to make the jump from your side hustle to your main hustle? Because, as you said, doing part-time work, you're only making supplemental income.
Yeah.
And it's hard to replace, $70,000, $80,000 job a year,
Yeah.
with a side hustle. So when do you feel like that inflection point really is?
Yeah, I think for knowing, is anybody else in that state where you're doing the side hustle and maybe trying to figure out when maybe when to go. So, it depends on each person. I've learned as a coach for 20 years that everybody has a different tolerance for risk. I've met people who have 3 years worth of savings, no debt, their house is paid off, and they're terrified of quitting their job. And I'm like, really? And I met people who have like enough for food next week, and they're like, no problem, right? And they do the Jerry Maguire and grab the goldfish and go. So you need to know based on your own risk tolerance. It always takes longer than you think to get ramped up, but that's the beauty of a side hustle. If you see forward progress, if you notice that you're missing opportunities specifically because you don't have the time to chase after it, right? Then that can be the time in which you cut. But I love it if people have some extra money in the bank, right? Maybe a couple of options of other things that you could do. All right, one more question? All right. Well, it's been such a joy and delight to be here. I am so thankful to all of you, and I hope that we can stay connected. You can find me at PamelaSlim.com, and that's where all of my social connections are, so LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. I want to say on behalf of our four-leggeds in my family, of DC and Rocky and Silly, I really want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I really believe in it. I'm so glad that you're out there advocating for the health and welfare of animals. So thank you so much for having me, and have a great rest of your time here in Phoenix.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. Oh, okay.
If you've been to many blog pods, you know that our keynotes do not get paid, but they allow us to make a donation to the charity of their choice on their behalf. And Pamela chose the Arizona Animal Welfare League and ASPCA.
Hey. Yeah.
So, another charity will benefit from Pamela being here, so thank you for that.
Awesome.
And let's give her one more round of applause for joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you. Awesome.
Howls from the audience. That's a good sign.
Yeah. And in just moments, we have some sessions starting. So we will close here, continue on, enjoy your afternoon, go learn. We can't wait to hear everything from you. Again, exhibit hall at 4, happy hour at 5:30, happy me hour with Kate Benjamin in the Cat Style Lounge and in the exhibit hall. And visit Robert at Pet World Insider. Thank you.